Welcome, traveler. Tonight, we delve into a darker yet equally sleepy side of ancient Egyptian history. Imagine yourself sneaking under the moonlight, with the whisper of the desert wind as your only companion. Every shadow seems to harbor a secret, every stone a trap, but your objective is clear: the treasures that await in the dark depths. You probably wouldn't last the night on this job, as the surveillance was intense and the punishments, well, let's call them permanently discouraging. But here, in the comfort of your own space, we can explore these peculiar details without any risk. Before surrendering to the silence of the night, if this moment touched you even slightly, don't forget to like the video and subscribe, but only if you mean it. And if you'd like, share in the comments. Where are you now? And what time did the world outside decide to slow down? It would be gratifying. Now, dim the lights, let the fan sing that constant hum in the background, and come, let's venture together. You move under the cloak of the Egyptian night, the air still heavy with the heat of the day, but with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of sand and perhaps a distant echo of the Nile. Your bare feet barely make a sound on the loose earth as you approach your chosen spot. It's not just any tomb, of course. Experienced thieves, as you consider yourself, knew that the great pyramids and more obvious temples were guarded with an almost mythological zeal. Your preference falls on smaller tombs, perhaps of second-tier nobles or wealthy officials who, while not pharaohs, accumulated a goodly stash of jewelry and amulets for the afterlife. You remember that old saying among colleagues: the smaller the tomb, the greater the chance of a peaceful nap afterward. You crouch near a pile of stones, feeling the cool roughness beneath your fingers. Your toolkit is simple but effective: a wooden shovel with a copper tip, a bronze chisel, and some resin torches to light your way. You're in no hurry. The night is long, and the day's heat, which would melt anyone, has now dissipated, leaving the perfect environment for your craft. You take a deep breath, the dry air filling your lungs, and begin to work. The sound of the chisel against the stone is muffled and rhythmic, almost like a lullaby to the ears of a cunning thief. You remember the first time you felt the weight of a lapis lazuli amulet in your hand. It was a moment of quiet euphoria, a promise of wealth you had never imagined. Historically, tomb robbers were an endemic problem in ancient Egypt, to the point where there are records of trials and severe punishments, including impalement, for those caught red-handed. But of course, most punishments were more about sending a message than about any real chance of capturing all the criminals. After all, the tombs were numerous, and the temptation was great. You've seen your colleagues return with treasures that would make a king blush, and tales of traps that would make a god tremble. One peculiarity you've learned from experience is that some tombs had such effective drainage systems that, even after millennia, the air inside was surprisingly dry. This, ironically, helped preserve the treasures, making your work even more valuable, and yes, more sleepy, as the dust stirred up by your excavation would float there, creating a kind of hazy mist. It was like working inside a dream, where the only thing that mattered was the gleam of gold in the torchlight. You wonder if the tomb builders, in their zeal to protect eternal rest, ever considered that they were creating such a cozy environment for those who came after. Historically, it's still debated whether most smaller tombs were actually looted by professional thieves or by desperate members of the community who saw the wealth of the dead as a chance to survive. You, of course, belong to the former category. Your work is methodical, almost artistic. There's no rush, just the search for the perfect opening, the one that won't damage the structure and allows for a quick escape should a hyena's snoring or a guard's patrolling alarm you. You pull a piece of dry bread from your bag, chewing it slowly as you consider the next stone to be removed. It's a life of patience, of waiting, of whispers and shadows, and, ultimately, of a deep, deep sleep. When the work is done and the weight of the gold is safely in your bag, you feel the dampness of the earth beneath your knees as you continue digging. The smell of old earth and ancient dust fills your nostrils, an aroma that to others would be repulsive, but to you it is the perfume of progress. Each stroke of the chisel is calculated, each stroke of earth removed a small victory. You visualize the entrance, the narrow passage that leads you to the dark but promising interior. The moonlight, once your only guide, is now obscured by the flickering light of your torch, which casts dancing shadows on the stone wall before you. You remember a time when a colleague, in his haste, knocked over a small mound of stones, and the noise echoed across the desert like thunder. He spent the rest of the night hidden, trembling with fear, while you, with your cat-like patience, continued working elsewhere. The silence of the desert is broken only by the sound of your breathing and the light drag of the shovel. It's a silence that invites introspection, but you don't allow yourself to digress too much. Your mind is focused on the task at hand, on the obstacles that lie ahead, and how to overcome them with minimal effort and fuss. You know that haste is the enemy of the tomb robber, and patience is his best friend. It's like a game of chess against the dead, where every move must be carefully planned. You remember hearing stories of thieves who, in their greed, tried to take too much and ended up trapped in narrow passages, their mummified bodies a macabre warning to those who follow. That's why you prefer a slower, more methodical approach, ensuring there are no enticing surprises. The feeling of the wind on your face is a constant reminder of the vastness of the desert around you. There are no houses, no people for miles, just sand and stars. It's a landscape that, to many, would be frightening, but to you, it's comforting. It's a place where you can be invisible, where your secrets are safe. You allow yourself a small smile. It's a lonely life, yes, but it's a life of freedom, far from the rules and restrictions of the city, and of course with the promise of a generous reward at the end of the night. You wonder if the tomb builders, in their wisdom, imagined that the desert, so protective in its immensity, would also be the perfect accomplice for those seeking to unravel its secrets. You feel sweat trickle down your forehead, but it's not the sweat of strenuous effort, but rather of concentration. Every part of your body is engaged in the task, but in a controlled, almost meditative way. It's a job that requires not only physical strength, but also cunning and an intimate knowledge of Egyptian construction techniques. You've studied the patterns of the stones, the way the mortar was applied, the small imperfections that reveal a structure's weak point. It's like reading a book, but instead of words, you read the stones, and each page you read takes you one step closer to your goal. You remember a time when, while removing a particularly stubborn stone, you found a small stone scarab, a good luck charm. You kept it, and ever since, it has been your silent companion on all your nocturnal adventures. It's a small reminder that even in the dark depths of tombs, life and beauty can be found. And, of course, a reminder that fortune sometimes smiles on the bold. You wonder if the ancient Egyptians, with their belief in the afterlife, imagined their good luck charms would end up in the hands of tomb robbers, aiding them on their own nocturnal journeys. The sound of the wind rises slightly, bringing with it the scent of something wild. You stop for a moment, your senses alert. It's a hyena, or perhaps a jackal, sniffing in the distance. You remain still, your breath held, until the sound fades. It's a constant reminder that even in the silence of the desert, you are not completely alone, but you are not afraid. You've faced far greater dangers in the depths of the tombs, and a wild animal is but a minor inconvenience in comparison. You resume your work, the rhythm slow and steady, like the beating heart of the night. You're already accustomed to the rhythm, the deep breathing, the level of your muscles as you bend and stretch, and the barely audible sound of your wooden shovel scraping the earth. Your tools aren't many, but each one is an extension of your will. There's a shovel, rustic, made of sturdy wood with a sharp copper tip, perfect for loosening compacted earth without making too much noise. Unlike the noisy metal shovels that drew attention to any sound of guards, yours is a tool of silence. Then comes the bronze chisel, small but refined, with a point you sharpen and polish yourself for hours until it shines like a shooting star. It's with it that you approach the most stubborn stones, finding the cracks and weaknesses only a trained eye can see. You pull a small linen bag from your bag. Inside is fine sand and perhaps a little wood ash. This isn't for covering tracks yet. It's a small but vital aid to your tools. Before you strike your next blow with the chisel, you spread a little of this mixture on the stone's face. It acts as a rudimentary release, allowing the tool to glide with less friction and, crucially, less noise. It's a trick you learned from an old master, a tomb robber so legendary that it was said he could open a sarcophagus without waking a fly. You always laughed at this, thinking that if the fly were sleeping so soundly, it wouldn't matter anyway. The light from your torch, made of compacted resin, emits a flickering golden glow. You hold yourself in a position that illuminates only your work immediately, preventing the light from spreading and attracting unwanted attention. The heat of the flame is gentle in the cool night air, and the smoke rises in thin spirals, almost invisible against the starry sky. You've seen colleagues using oversized torches lit in the desert and always figured they were supposed to be announcing, "Hey guards, come arrest me here." Subtlety is key, my dear friend. It's like a whisper in the night, almost imperceptible, but present. Historically, tool-making in ancient Egypt was a highly developed art, with masters of copper and bronze to create innovative and practical instruments for various purposes, including construction and, ironically, deconstruction. Knowledge of metallurgy was passed down through generations, and even the most skilled thieves depended on the quality of these materials. You take pride in your tools. They are more than just objects. They are your silent companions in the darkness, and their maintenance is an almost religious routine. You sharpen them regularly, feel their edge, and know exactly how much pressure to apply for each perfect strike. As you work, a small desert scarab appears and walks slowly over the stone you are about to remove. You stop to watch the insertion with some amusement. It's a tiny creature, but its breakage briefly reveals the silent monotony of its work. You move your torch slightly to the side, so the heat doesn't disturb it. The scarab continues on its way, oblivious to the gold and the secrets about to be revealed. You think perhaps it's just looking for a quiet place to sleep. Who would have thought a tomb robber would pay such a price for wildlife? Historically, there's still debate about whether tomb robbers used some kind of lever system or relied solely on brute force and persistence to move the large stones that sealed the tomb entrances. You know the truth isn't a compromise. It's a combination of technique, patience, and yes, a lot of physical strength. You remember that day when, while trying to move a particularly heavy slab, you nearly crushed your own foot. Since then, you always say a small prayer to the desert gods before tackling a difficult stone. After all, you never know when divine help might come in handy, even for those who are readjusting the property of the dead. The silence of the excavation is almost palpable. Every scrape of the shovel, every light tap of the chisel is absorbed by the vast desert around you. You hear your own heartbeat, slow and steady. It's a rhythm that calms you, that puts you in a state of flow where time seems to no longer exist. You don't think about tomorrow or yesterday, only the next move, the next stone, the next inch of progress. The dust that rises is minimal, fine as talcum powder, and you try not to breathe too deeply. It has a peculiar smell of ancient earth and the absence of light. You wonder if, millennia from now, someone will breathe the dust of your own tomb and think about your day. Probably not, you think, with a slight smile. Most people only care about wealth. As you move forward, the ambient temperature begins to change. The air becomes denser, a little cooler, a sign that you are approaching the tomb's interior. The desert humidity diminishes, giving way to dry, musty air with a scent reminiscent of clay and ancient stones. You feel a shiver run down your spine, not of fear, but of anticipation. It's a familiar feeling, the same one you feel when you're about to find an oasis after a long desert trek. The promise of something valuable is in the air, and you know you're getting closer. You pause for a moment, rubbing your forehead with the sleeve of your tunic. Sweat mixes with the dust, creating a light mass that you feel on your skin. You close your eyes briefly, listening only to the wind. There are no hyenas, no jackals, just the sound of the vastness. It's a calm you cherish, a calm that's essential to your work. Any unexpected event could spell disaster. You remember a tale of a thief who, upon hearing a tiny mouse squeak, discovered it was a guard and fled, leaving behind a sarcophagus full of jewels. You always found that hilarious. A mouse! Imagine a story he would tell later, exaggerating the danger. You, however, are more skeptical. Your hand moves with almost surgical precision. You are now on the final layer of stones, the ones that seal the main entrance. They are larger, heavier, and were placed with a clear intention to stay in place. But you know the tricks. You feel the edges, searching for the perfect joint, the weak point. It's like solving a giant puzzle where the reward is treasure. You feel a small depression, barely perceptible to the touch. It's here. With a firm, deliberate blow of the chisel, you hear a sharp crack. The stone moves a millimeter, then another. The old, stagnant air of the tomb exhales outside, carrying a smell of mold and mystery. You are inside. The stone gives way, not with a dramatic crash like in adventure tales, but with a soft sigh, almost a murmur of the earth. You push against the slab, feeling the coolness of the confined air escaping, a thick, dusty smell that is unmistakable, the scent of centuries of silence and forgotten promises. You enter, torch raised, illuminating a small, dark corridor. This is the moment that defines everything. The threshold between the world of the living and inviolate safety, or nearly so. In your case, if a modern archaeologist were here, they would be wild with joy. But you are merely calculating your next step. Your feet, accustomed to the hot desert sand, now feel the uneven, cool surface of the stone floor. You advance slowly, torch in front of you, allowing the light to dance on the walls, revealing the faded inscriptions and hieroglyphics that tell the story of the deceased. You don't stop to decipher them. Your mind is elsewhere, reading the security signs, the hidden traps. Your old teacher, Khepri, used to say, "The walls speak, young man, but they tell of gold. Pay attention to your feet." And Khepri, who could sense a loose stone from miles away, was always right. The corridor is narrow, forcing you to stoop slightly. The air is heavy, and you feel a slight pressure in your ears, as if you were diving into a deep well. But your senses are heightened. You detect the slightest hint of a tripod wire, a subtle discoloration in the stone that indicates a false door. It's like walking in the dark in your own home, but with the risk of finding a death trap instead of a piece of furniture. Once, your friend Hori, the one who always rushed, almost activated a sand trap. He spent the whole night cursing the engineers, and you laughed so hard you almost woke him. Ah, Hori, always so impulsive. Historically, the Egyptians developed intricate security systems in their tombs, including false shafts, blind corridors, and large stone blocks sliding into sealed passages. The goal was to deter thieves and protect the bodies and possessions of the dead for eternity. However, the thieves' persistence and ingenuity often overcame these defenses. It's almost like an arms race between life and death, and you're winning, for now. An interesting discovery you've noticed about these tombs is that, because they're sealed for so long, the oxygen inside becomes rarefied, which can cause a feeling of dizziness and drowsiness in those who enter unprepared. You've felt it before. It's like a slow embrace of oblivion. But you've learned to control your breathing, to move calmly so as not to consume too much air. It's a kind of tense meditation, where your focus on not fainting keeps you surprisingly present in the moment. Sometimes you think they should have used this technique in prisons. It would be far more effective than guarding. Historically, it's still debated whether some of the tomb's curses were actually the effects of bacteria or mold that grew in closed environments for millennia, causing illness to those who dared enter. You, however, only worry about the more tangible dangers, the stone that might give way, the trap that might spring. Curses are for the superstitious. You trust your instincts and Khepri's lessons. He always said the true curse wasn't finding anything of value. You've advanced around a bend in the corridor, and the torch reveals a larger chamber. The tension eases slightly, lingers for a moment. This isn't the main burial chamber, you realize, but a storage room or perhaps an antechamber. Here, The air is a little less dense, and you can breathe more freely. You look around, your trained eyes taking in every detail. Ceramic jars, stacked wooden boxes, perhaps some offerings. It's not the main treasure, but it's a good start. It's like finding an appetizer before the feast, and you know the best is yet to come. You now find yourself in a longer, more mysterious corridor, the light of your torch dancing before you, swallowed by immense darkness. The air here is stiller, heavier, laden with the unmistakable scent of millennia. It's a mixture of dust, rock, and something you can't quite identify, but which evokes the image of ancient linen and guarded secrets. You advance, your steps slow and deliberate, almost gliding over the stone floor so as not to disturb the oppressive silence that permeates the place. Every sound you make, the rustle of your tunic, the soft flick of the torch seems to be amplified, echoing faintly off the walls and returning to you, almost like a whisper. This corridor, you realize, was designed to confuse. There are several side passages, all dark and inviting, but you know that many of them are merely dead ends, or worse, traps. Khepri, your master, used to say that the Egyptians were geniuses at creating one-way routes for those in a hurry. They invite you in, my dear, but they don't help you out, he would grumble. And Hori, that impulsive man, once got lost in one of those labyrinths for hours, where every passage seemed to lead to treasure when in fact it only led to more stone walls. You can almost hear him complaining about the nightmarish interior design of pharaonic architects. You trust your instincts, that intuition honed by time and experience. Your hand slides gently along the cool wall, searching for the slightest variation in the stone's texture, the slight unevenness that indicates a secret passage or a shifting slab. It's a kind of blind reading, where your fingers act as your extra eyes. You've noticed that no matter how grandiose Egyptian buildings were, there was always a small imperfection, a mark of the craftsman, that you could use to your advantage. It's as if they left a small clue for the more attentive, or perhaps a reminder of human imperfection, even in divine works. Historically, many Egyptian tombs, especially the more complex ones from the New Kingdom, incorporated not only false passages, but also diversion chambers and deep shafts intended to deter thieves or simply to exhaust their resources and patience. These features made navigation a challenge, and design required intimate knowledge of funerary architecture. It was less about brute force and more about intelligence and persistence. One discovery you've noticed in some tombs is the presence of small, seemingly empty niches in the walls. However, Khepri taught that in some cases, these niches were used to store very small offerings, such as necklace beads or personally valuable amulets that weren't considered part of the great treasure, but still held sentimental or symbolic value to the deceased. You've encountered one of these, and discovered that sometimes the smallest of discoveries can be the most surprising. It was as if the deceased were playing hide and seek with you, and the prize was a small, forgotten jewel. Historically, it's still debated whether tomb robbers had some kind of map or oral knowledge passed down from generation to generation about tomb defenses, or whether each foray was an entirely new and dangerous exploration. You know that experience is your map, and the stories of your elders are your guides, but each tomb has its own personality, its own quirks. It's a guessing game where the stakes are your freedom, or worse, your life. You pass through an open door, revealing a room that appears to have been used for embalming rituals. The smell of natron, a mixture of salts used to dry bodies, still lingers in the air, mixed with a faint aroma of resin and specian. It's a smell that can be a bit overwhelming, but you've grown accustomed to it. You avoid looking into the darkest corners, where your imagination might play tricks. After all, you're not here to meet the dead, only to redistribute their belongings. You think that if the pharaohs knew their preparations for eternity would become a playground for thieves like you, perhaps they would have opted for a more practical cremation. Silence is your greatest weapon and your greatest ally. You hear the echo of every breath, the soft rustle of your linen. Any strange sound, any footstep that isn't your own, is an immediate alarm. Your ears are constantly attuned to the slightest breaking noise. the creak of a stone that shouldn't be there, the rush of wind from an unknown opening. It's almost as if the tomb is breathing along with you, a bejeweled giant you don't want to wake. The darkness itself isn't frightening. It's the absence of sound that can be unsettling, the feeling of being completely isolated. You find a small slope in the ground, a gentle ramp that descends further into the depths. You know you're going in the right direction. Larger tombs often have multiple layers, descending ever closer to the final sanctuary. It's a slow, controlled descent, your feet testing every inch of the ground before trusting your full weight. The torchlight now barely reaches the end of the ramp, and the darkness ahead seems even more impenetrable. You remember that childhood fear of the dark, but now it's replaced by a mixture of guilt and caution. It's like descending into hell, but with the promise of a golden paradise at the end. A sudden, cold, dry breeze blows from the bottom of the tunnel, causing the flame of your torch to flicker. It's the air from the deepest chambers, air that has been sealed for millennia. You feel a chill on your skin. It's not freezing cold, but a chill of time, of centuries gone by. It's a vivid reminder of the antiquity of the place and how insignificant you are compared to the vastness of history that surrounds you. But you're undeterred. You've come for a purpose, and history is about to become a little lighter in your pockets. You hear a steady drip. It's not water, you realize, but something denser. Your torch illuminates a small leak of resin coming from a crack in the ceiling. It's a resin that was used in the embalming process, perhaps seeping slowly through a fissure in the rock. Khepri once joked that it was the honey of the dead, but you know it would be too bitter and sticky for your taste. You dodge, making sure the liquid doesn't splash onto your torch and extinguish its light, as that would be a truly unwelcome turn of events in your night's work. With each step, you feel the weight of history, but also the lightness of your own breath, the constant sound of your own life amidst so much silence. It's a dance with the shadows, an exploration of a world not meant for the living. But you are here, and you are navigating, step by step, toward the heart of the mystery, in search of the silent gleam of gold. You descend the gentle ramp, your eyes fixed on the darkness ahead, torch raised. The air here is more humid, and a new, almost imperceptible scent begins to fill your nostrils, a metallic, earthy aroma, mixed with the mustiness of centuries. It is the scent of the unmistakable, the scent of treasure. You know deep in your thieving soul that it is near. Your steps slow even more, not out of caution, but out of a kind of silent reverence. It is the culmination of the night, the point to which all your hard work has been a prelude. The light of your torch flickers, and then a soft glow breaks the darkness. It is not a bright light, but a reflection, a golden point that flickers and catches your attention. You advance another step, and another, and then the chamber opens before you. It takes a moment for your eyes to adjust to the sight, but when they do, a silent sigh escapes your lips. It's not a sigh of exertion, but of pure, undisguised, and strangely calm wonder. In the flickering torchlight, the gold gleams. Alabaster jars adorned with gold leaf, statues of gods with pure gold details, necklaces and bracelets that gleam like tiny constellations. The glow is soft, inviting, as if the objects have been waiting for you for millennia. It's the kind of scene that would make Hori scream with joy and risk calling the entire Egyptian guard. But you, my friend, are different. You're a professional. The emotion is there, yes, a vibrant pulse in your veins, but it's controlled, almost a murmur in your heart. Khepri always said, "Gold goes nowhere alone, my dear. Patience is the best chain for it." Historically, the Egyptian tombs of pharaohs and wealthy nobles were veritable treasure chambers, filled with grave goods destined to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. This included gold jewelry and semi-precious stones, figurines of deities and servants, fine furniture, and even food and drink. The belief was that all of this was necessary for a comfortable life in the reed field. And indeed, ancient thieves fully agreed with the usefulness of these items only in the present. One piece of evidence you notice is that, in a corner of the chamber, there is a small pile of children's wooden toys, simple and worn with age, next to a ceramic piggy bank, almost an ancient piggy bank, still intact. It's a touching sight, a reminder that behind all the gold and pomp, there was a human life. You wonder what a child would do with all that gold. Probably trade it for more toys or candy. And you, with all the gold in the world, wouldn't have much use for a piggy bank now, would you? The irony of life and death is sometimes hilarious. Historically, there's still debate over whether the pharaohs truly believed they would need all these goods in the afterlife, or whether part of the tomb's opulence was a demonstration of power and wealth for the living. You know, in practice, that what matters most is what it's worth on the market, and the market always values gold. Philosophy is good for the living, gold for the survivors. You walk deeper into the chamber, the light of your torch revealing more and more details. The walls are covered in colorful hieroglyphics that, even after millennia, still retain their vibrant beauty. They tell stories of gods, of journeys to the underworld, of rituals and offerings. You don't read them, but you admire them. It's incredible art, and you think that if the artists were paid a third of the gold here, they could have lived much more comfortable, lively lives. And you, of course, wouldn't be here now. You approach a stone pedestal in the center of the chamber, where a sarcophagus sits. It's not the main sarcophagus, but a smaller one, perhaps for a family member or a priceless pet. You don't care about the mummy. Your interest isn't in pursuit. The base of the sarcophagus is surrounded by a profusion of jewelry, solid gold necklaces inlaid with lapis lazuli and carnelian, delicate bracelets, rings with large gemstones. It's a feast for any thief's eyes. You kneel, feeling the coolness of the stone floor beneath your knees. Your fingers reach out slowly, almost hesitantly, and touch one of the necklaces. The gold is cool to the touch, but its texture is smooth and heavy. You lift it, letting it fall back into the pile, watching the glow it emits in the torchlight. It's an ancient glow, a glow that has witnessed the glory of an empire and the slumber of a dead man. You remember Capri teaching, "Always check the weight, my son. The weight never lies." And this necklace, you can feel, weighs enough to be real. The silence in the chamber is almost reverent. There are no sounds outside, no interruptions from the outside world. It's as if you're in a world apart, a world where time stands still and the only thing that matters is the glow of our own and the satisfaction of discovery. You feel a sense of peace, a strange calm that fills the air. It's the kind of peace that can only be found in the solitude of an ancient tomb, surrounded by riches that very few living people have ever seen. You think that perhaps the pharaoh's spirit was truly happy to share after all. After all, he doesn't need all that in the afterlife, does he? You begin to make a mental assessment. Which items are the most valuable? Which are easiest to transport without attracting attention? It's a methodical process, almost a ritual. You move from one object to another, touching them, feeling their weight, assessing their shine. It's like being in a market, but without vendors, without haggling, just you and the treasure. With each piece you examine, a quiet emotion grows, a gentle hum that nestles in your chest. It's the sound of success, the sound of freedom approaching with each joy you plan to bring. The light of your torch dances over a mountain of riches, revealing every facet of a gemstone necklace, the dull gleam of a solid gold ring, the reflection of a small figurine. Now comes the crucial part, the part where a tomb robber's patience and experience truly show, the silent choices. It's not about grabbing everything you see. That would be the mistake of an amateur, of someone like Hori, who in his greed once tried to drag an entire sarcophagus, only to barely make it out of the tomb with an ostrich feather in his hand. Capri always taught that the art lies not in taking much, but in taking the right thing. You pick up a blue faience bead necklace, beautiful in its simplicity, but light in weight, and you know the market value isn't worth the risk. You put it back with a barely audible sigh. Your focus isn't on how small it is, how valuable it is, and, above all, how portable it is. Imagine having to flee from a guard with a 10-foot statue on your back. It would be hilarious, of course, but not for you. That's why the canopic jars, though incredibly beautiful, usually stay where they are. Your priority is the jewelry, the gold amulets, the small objects of precious metal. They are the currency of your world, the guarantee of your freedom. You crouch down again, breathing in the heavy air and the ancient smell of the tomb. With each piece of gold you touch, the flame of your torch reflects off it, creating small points of light that dance in the darkness. You examine a gold bracelet, weighing it in your hand. It's not just the gold itself, but the purity and craftsmanship. The examples were masters of goldsmithing, and you've learned to appreciate the beauty of their work, even if its intention is somewhat utilitarian. This bracelet, you know, would be worth a small fortune on the Theban black market. Khepri used to say that the pharaohs were the best goldsmiths, as they literally had all the time in the world. Historically, gold was the most coveted metal by Egyptian tomb robbers, not only for its intrinsic value but also for its malleability and resistance to corrosion, maintaining its luster for millennia. Besides gold, precious stones such as lapis lazuli, carnelian, and turquoise, often encrusted in jewelry and amulets, were also highly prized. They weren't interested in grain jars or furniture unless they were gold-plated, of course. One piece of evidence you've noticed in some tombs is that the most valuable pieces weren't always the most obvious. Sometimes, a small amulet hidden inside a fold of linen, or a ring disguised among clay beads, could be worth more than a massive necklace. It's as if the dead, in their final joke, hid the best treasures in the most unlikely places. That's why you have a small, nearly invisible bronze hook that you use to probe inside fabrics and small spaces. You never know what might be hidden there, a silent secret waiting to be discovered. You smile to yourself, thinking they should have left a little note. The best is in the mummy's pocket, not in her head. Historically, it's still debated whether tomb robbers had networks of informants within the court or among the priests, who provided details about the contents and location of the tomb's defenses, or whether each foray was an entirely new and dangerous exploration. You personally believe it's a mix of both, but having a good tip always helps, doesn't it? Intuition, while valuable, is always best accompanied by a little insider knowledge. You open a small linen bag you brought with you, the same kind you used to carry your dry bread. Now, it will be filled with something far more valuable. Carefully, you select a pair of gold earrings with intricate hawk designs, a small gold scarab that was likely a seal, and a ring with an eye of Horus carved into a dark stone. Each item is sold quickly, its quality and integrity checked. You don't want to take home a damaged piece that's worth less. The feel of the cold, heavy gold in your palm is what you seek. It's a feeling of power, of quiet achievement. You know that with each piece you add to your bag, your life outside the tomb becomes a little more comfortable, a little freer. It's not out of unbridled greed, you convince yourself, but out of necessity. You're not a king, but you need to live like one. And the only way to achieve this is by borrowing from another king's provisions for eternity. You hear the faint clink of gold and jewels as you carefully place them in the bag. The sound is muffled by the linen, but to you, it's the sweetest of symphonies. It's the melody of success, the echo of a job well done. You make sure the items don't rub together too much, so as not to scratch them, as a scratch can diminish their value. It's an almost loving care, like that of a collector. It's funny, you think, how someone who steals a treasure can end up appreciating it more than its original owner. After all, the owner is dead, and you are very, very alive. You continue your selection, moving methodically through the chamber. Your eyes scan every shadow, every corner, searching for any treasure that might have been overlooked in previous forays, or that might have been hidden with special cunning. You've already found gold coins in jars of grain, and small figurines inside linen boxes. The Egyptians were quite creative with their hiding places, much to your delight. With each item you choose, a feeling of lightness settles over your spirit, while the bag in your hand becomes noticeably heavier. It's a fair exchange, you decide. The treasure that was merely gathering dust and cobwebs will now have a new purpose, a new life in the outside world. You imagine what you'll do with the money, perhaps a fine wine, a hearty meal, or perhaps a new pair of soft leather comforters, the small joys of life that gold can buy. And all of this, you think, is the fruit of a silent, patient night's work. You've filled your linen sack with your most coveted riches, feeling the familiar weight of gold and jewels in your hands. It's a comforting weight, the promise of better days under the sun. But complacency is a tomb robber's worst enemy. Now, your mind and senses turn outward, to the children of the night who might bring danger. Your gaze is no longer fixed on the glitter of riches, but on the darkness of the corridor behind you, on the opening that led you here. It's a watchful gaze, trained to detect the slightest anomaly, the faintest suspicious noise coming from outside. The silence inside the tomb is almost absolute, but you know the desert isn't completely muddy. There's the wind, which can carry sounds across great distances, the distant voices of nocturnal animals, the howl of a lone jackal, the rustle of a scorpion in the sand. Khepri used to say that the desert had a language of its own at night, and that only trained ears could understand it. A thief doesn't hear with his ears alone, young man, he taught. He hears with his soul, with a shiver on the back of his neck. And you feel that shiver now, a slight tingling that keeps you alert. You pause for a moment, your body tense, the sack of treasures tightly clutched. Your breathing is shallow and controlled. You close your eyes to sharpen your hearing even further. There's a sound. It's not a clear sound, but a faint, almost imperceptible shuffling. Is it sand? A falling stone? Or a foot? You wait, motionless, like a miniature statue, and the sound doesn't repeat. Probably the wind, or perhaps your own imagination, playing tricks on you in the darkness. It's a cruel joke, but Khepri warned that a thief's mind is sometimes his worst enemy. Hori, of course, would have run out the entrance screaming, only to discover it was a desert rabbit. Historically, Egyptian necropolis guards, known as medjay, were often employed to patrol the tomb grounds, especially at night. They were soldiers and police officers, often armed with clubs and bows, and their presence was a significant deterrent to thieves. Although many tombs were robbed, it was no easy task and involved a combination of luck, audacity, and, of course, a very good ear. One thing you've learned from experience is that the sound of your own torch can be deceptive. The crackling of the resin, the hiss of the flame, can mask other noises or, worse, create the illusion of a sound that isn't there. That's why, from time to time, you hold it tightly to muffle the sound, or even extinguish it for a few seconds, immersing yourself in total darkness to hear clearly. It's a moment of vulnerability, but a necessary one. It's as if you're betting your life on your own ability to discern reality from imagination. And yes, sometimes, in the pitch darkness, you feel as if you're being watched by hundreds of mummified eyes. It's a very peculiar sensation, I can assure you. Historically, there's still debate about the true effectiveness of the medjay's night patrols. Some argued they were subordinate, while others insisted they were loyal and efficient, and that the vast majority of robbed tombs were breached by persistent intruders, not by guard negligence. You, however, weren't a risk. You were as if each medjay were the most loyal and cunning of them all. After all, an Egyptian prison doesn't seem like the most pleasant place to spend eternity. You move slowly to the tomb's opening, the torchlight behind you, not to leave yet, but to take a final visual and auditory scan of the exterior. Your eyes adjust to the dim desert night. The moon is high in the sky, casting a silvery light over the dunes and the distant silhouettes of the other tombs. The air is fresh and clean now, a welcome contrast to the musty air inside. You listen for any unusual movement, any shadow that seems out of place. Something in the distance, a bark. It's a dog or perhaps a jackal near a Bedouin camp. You relax your shoulder. It's a natural sound, a sound that belongs in the desert. You remember hearing Hori once mistake Khepri's snoring, which was quite loud, for the sound of a desert monster. He nearly abandoned a perfectly good haul because of it. Apparently, Khepri's deep sleep was a greater threat than any medjay. Your eyes move slowly across the horizon. No sign of distant touches, no figure moving against the moonlight. The desert seems adorned, safe. It's a seeming calm, a calm that could be shattered at any moment. That's why you never fully relax until you're far, far away from the site. Vigilance is a habit that becomes part of you, as natural as breathing. You allow a small yawn, the tiredness of the night as you begin to install. The weight of the linen sack in your hand is a reminder of a job well done, but also of the long journey home. You think of the soft bed that awaits you, and the deep sleep that will come when the danger is behind you. It's this promise of rest that keeps you focused, that keeps you from giving in to fatigue now. You take one last look, letting your eyes wander over the stars in the Egyptian sky. They seem cheaper here, away from the city's pollution, almost within reach. It's a sight that makes you feel small, but also part of something vast and ancient. The silence of the desert and the starlight are your confidants, the only witnesses to your nocturnal forays. With one last cautious glance at the desert, you turn and begin to prepare for the next phase, your silent exit. The gold in your sack vibrates with its own energy, calling you away from the darkness of the tomb and back, it seems, to freedom under the Egyptian sky. Your vigilance continues, but now there's a new purpose in your movements, the promise of a well-deserved sleep. Dear traveler, our journey through the silent darkness of the Egyptian tombs is drawing to a close. Slowly, let the images that filled your mind begin to dissolve, like the smoke of a torch fading into the calm desert air. You, our silent protagonist, have walked the dusty corridors and secret chambers, your steps so light they barely disturb the ancient rest. Feel the weight, not of the gold, but of the knowledge you have acquired, the perception of a vivid nocturnal life amid shadows and secrets. Let the tension of each chisel stroke, of each meticulous check of the traps, drain from you. There is no longer any need to watch the horizon, to distinguish the whisper of the wind from the footsteps of a guard. The gleam of gold you imagined, the jewels that glinted in the flickering light, now transform into a gentle warmth in your imagination, a distant promise of tranquility. The names of Khepri and Hori, your companions in this imaginary adventure, fade softly like echoes in a distant valley, mere guides on a path of dreams. Allow the silence of the tomb, so deep and ancient, to envelop you like a soft blanket. The desert sand, once the stage for your secret journey, now stretches in your mind like a vast, calm ocean, inviting rest. There is no danger here, only the promise of a peaceful sleep. The musty air of the dark chambers transforms into the cool night breeze, and the scent of antiquity gives way to the clean scent of the night air, as soft as a whisper. The stars that guided our thief through the darkness now shine above you, distant points of light inviting you to sleep. There is no need to rush, nor to worry about treasure or danger. The ancient walls of the tomb silently guard their own secrets, and you can trust that they will remain safe, adorned. Let the images of guards and traps fade, overwhelmed by a sense of security and peace. The once alert sounds now become part of a gentle symphony, a distant murmur that lulls your thoughts. The crackling of the torch, the soft rustle of clothing, the beating of your own heart of everything calms, softens. You no longer need to discern dangers, simply surrender to the peaceful flow of time. The night's journey is over, and rest awaits. Calm your mind, feel lightness in your body, and let yourself sink into serenity. There are no more challenges to face, no treasures to find, only the invitation to a deep, restful sleep, where the worries of the day and the adventures of the night dissolve into tranquility. Imagine yourself floating, light and weightless, in a space of pure calm, where time has no meaning and darkness is a gentle embrace. Sleep well, dear traveler, and have sweet, sweet dreams.